The champagne flute trembled in Sabrina's perfectly manicured hand as she raised it high above the crowded country club ballroom. Her emerald dress sparkled under the crystal chandeliers, and that $1,000,000 smile I'd fallen for 3 years ago beamed across her face. "Everyone! Everyone!" she called out, her voice carrying that slight slur that meant she'd had one too many. "I have something to say about my wonderful fiancé." I stood beside her, straightening my tie, wondering what pearls of wisdom my beloved was about to share with Portland's social elite. The crowd of 200 guests turned toward us, champagne glasses paused mid-sip. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. "You all know Eli here," Sabrina continued, gesturing toward me with theatrical flair. "My sweet, hard-working, successful husband-to-be, and I just want everyone to know the truth about why I'm marrying him." The room fell silent. I felt my stomach drop. "I'm marrying him for the money, obviously," she declared with a laugh that rang through the ballroom like breaking glass. The crowd erupted in laughter. Her parents, the distinguished Mr. and Mrs. Hartford, chuckled politely from their table near the front. Her best friend Janelle held up her phone, no doubt filming this moment for her social media empire. Even my cop buddy Marty was grinning from the bar. I smiled too, playing along with what I hoped was just a tasteless joke. But something cold settled in my chest as I watched her face. There was too much truth in her eyes, too much satisfaction in her smirk. "Well," I said, raising my own glass with a grin that felt like plastic. "Good thing we signed that prenup this morning, right?" The laughter died instantly. Sabrina's face went chalk white, her smile freezing like a broken mask. Her mother's champagne glass actually slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble floor. Her father's face turned the color of his burgundy bow tie. "What?" Sabrina whispered, her voice barely audible over the sudden murmur of confused guests. "The prenup," I repeated cheerfully, taking a sip of champagne. "You know, the one our lawyers drew up? The one that says if either of us cheats or tries to marry for money, they get nothing in the divorce?" I hadn't signed any prenup. We'd discussed it months ago, but Sabrina had thrown such a fit that I'd dropped the subject. But watching her face drain of color, seeing the panic flash across her features, I knew my instincts had been right all along. From the corner of my eye, I spotted Brady Collins, Sabrina's personal trainer, standing near the exit. The way his jaw had dropped, the way he was staring at Sabrina with something that looked like accusation, it told me everything I needed to know. "Eli?" Sabrina laughed nervously. "You're joking, right? We never signed anything this morning." "Didn't we?" I asked innocently. "Maybe you were too nervous to remember. Wedding planning can be so stressful." The crowd was eating this up, thinking it was all part of some elaborate joke between the happy couple. But I could see the wheels turning in Sabrina's head, could practically hear her trying to figure out if I was bluffing. That night, after the guests had gone home and we'd cleaned up the disaster of our engagement party, I lay in bed, listening to Sabrina's breathing. She wasn't asleep, I could tell by the rhythm. She was thinking, planning, probably texting. The next morning, I made coffee and watched her through the kitchen window as she talked animatedly on her phone in the garden. When she came back inside, she was all smiles and apologies. "Honey, about last night," she said, sliding her arms around my waist. "I'm so sorry. I was just nervous and drank too much. You know I love you for you, not your money." "Of course," I said, kissing her forehead. "I was just playing along with your joke." But I wasn't playing anymore. That afternoon, while Sabrina was at her yoga class, I did something I'd never done before. I checked our home security system. We had cameras everywhere for insurance purposes, and I'd never bothered looking at the footage. What I found made my blood run cold. 3 weeks of deleted segments, always on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, always when I was at the office, always during Sabrina's supposed yoga classes. I called the security company, claiming I needed the deleted footage for insurance purposes. They were happy to help a valued customer. The first video showed Brady's silver BMW pulling into our driveway. The second showed him and Sabrina embracing in our kitchen. The third showed them going upstairs to our bedroom. I sat in my home office, watching my wife betray me in high definition, and felt something cold and calculating settle into my chest. The hurt would come later. Right now, I needed to think. My phone buzzed with a text from our neighbor, Mrs. Ellis. "Eli, dear, I hope you don't mind me mentioning, but there have been some strange cars in your driveway lately. Just want to make sure everything's secure." I texted back, "Thanks for looking out for us, Mrs. Ellis. Just some contractors doing estimates." But Mrs. Ellis had given me an idea. The next Tuesday, I told Sabrina I had a client meeting in Boston and would be gone all day. Instead, I parked 3 blocks away and walked back through the woods behind our house. I had a perfect view of our driveway from the old oak tree where I used to read as a kid. Sure enough, at 2 p.m., Brady's BMW pulled up. He strutted to the front door like he owned the place, carrying a gym bag and a bottle of expensive wine. My wine, I realized, from the collection in our basement. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. I waited until 4 p.m., then called the house phone from my cell. Sabrina answered on the 5th ring, slightly breathless. "Oh, hi, honey. How's Boston?" "Great. Just wanted to let you know I'll be late tonight. Client wants to take me to dinner." "That's fine. I'm just doing some yoga and meal prep." Yoga. Right. That evening I found Brady's water bottle in our kitchen trash and his business card on our coffee table. When I confronted Sabrina about it, she had a ready explanation. "Oh, that's from when he came by to discuss training packages for both of us. I forgot to mention it. You know how scatterbrained I get." I smiled and nodded, but inside I was planning. The next day, I drove to Brady's gym across town. It was one of those trendy places with exposed brick and overpriced protein shakes. I watched him through the window, strutting around in his tight tank top, flirting with clients, checking himself out in every mirror. At lunch, I followed him to Murphy's Pub downtown. He sat at the bar, ordered a beer, and started bragging to anyone who would listen. "You guys don't understand," he was saying to the bartender and 2 other customers. "I've got this client, married to this tech entrepreneur, right? Guy's worth millions, but he's completely clueless. Wife smoking hot, totally unsatisfied, and she's basically throwing herself at me." The bartender, a guy named Rick I'd known since high school, caught my eye as I slipped into a booth behind Brady. "So what's your play?" one of the customers asked. "She's gonna leave him, take half his money, and we're gonna live like kings," Brady laughed. "Guy's so wrapped up in his business, he has no idea what's happening in his own house. It's like taking candy from a baby." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "What about the prenup?" the other customer asked. Brady nearly choked on his beer. "What prenup? Didn't you hear? It was all over social media. Some engagement party where the guy mentioned signing a prenup that morning." I watched Brady's face go pale in the mirror behind the bar. "That was just a joke," he said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "There's no way they actually signed anything." "I don't know, man," Rick said, wiping down glasses. "Eli Grant's a smart guy. Built his company from nothing. Doesn't seem like the type to leave things to chance." Brady's hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone and started typing furiously. I finished my recording, paid my tab, and left through the back exit. By the time I got home, Sabrina was pacing in the living room, her phone pressed to her ear. "I don't care what you heard," she was hissing. "Find out if he really signed something or if he was just trying to embarrass me." She hung up when she saw me and forced a smile. "Hi, honey. How was work?" "Productive," I said. "Very productive. That weekend, we attended the annual charity gala at the same country club where we'd gotten engaged." Sabrina was nervous, I could tell. She kept checking her phone and scanning the crowd. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. Instead, I found the AV booth where they controlled the sound system for the evening's presentations. "Hey, Mike," I said to the sound technician, a guy I'd gone to high school with. "Mind if I test the microphone for my speech later?" "Sure thing, Eli. Just flip this switch when you're ready." I pulled out my phone and connected it to the sound system, then returned to my table. Sabrina was deep in conversation with Janelle, both of them looking worried. When the time came for the evening's speeches, I stood up and walked to the podium. The room fell silent as I tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for coming tonight to support such a worthy cause," I began. "Before we continue with the program, I think you'll find this interesting." I pressed play on my phone. Brady's voice filled the ballroom, crystal clear. "She's gonna leave him, take half his money, and we're gonna live like kings. Guy's so wrapped up in his business, he has no idea what's happening in his own house. It's like taking candy from a baby." The silence was deafening. 200 of Portland's most prominent citizens sat frozen, champagne glasses halfway to their lips, staring at me in shock. I looked directly at Sabrina. Her face had gone from pale to green, and she was gripping the edge of the table so hard her knuckles were white. "I guess the joke's on me," I said into the microphone, then walked out of the ballroom. The next morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Janelle's social media posts about the drama at the charity gala had gone viral. Mrs. Ellis called to offer her support and share some additional information about Sabrina's visitors over the past year. Sabrina had locked herself in our bedroom and refused to come out. Around noon, Brady showed up at our front door. I watched him through the security camera as he pounded on the door and shouted Sabrina's name. I opened the door with a smile. "Brady, what a surprise!" He was unshaven, wild-eyed, and clearly hadn't slept. "Where is she?" "My wife? She's indisposed at the moment. Can I take a message?" "You son of a—" He stepped forward, trying to push past me. I didn't move. At 6'2" and 200 pounds, with 15 years of amateur boxing under my belt, I had 4 inches and 30 pounds on Brady's gym-sculpted frame. "I wouldn't," I said quietly. He looked up at me, seemed to remember that all those pretty muscles were just for show, and stepped back. "This isn't over," he said. "Actually, it is." I closed the door and activated the smart lock system I'd had installed the week before. Every door and window in the house was now secured with electronic locks that only responded to my phone. An hour later, I heard Sabrina trying to leave through the back door. When it wouldn't open, she started pounding on it. "Eli! Eli! Let me out!" I walked to the back door and spoke through the intercom I'd had installed. "We need to talk first. Let me out right now or I'm calling the police." "Go ahead. I'm sure they'd love to hear the recording I made of you and Brady planning to take my money." The pounding stopped. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice small. "The truth. All of it." What came out over the next 2 hours was worse than I'd imagined. The affair had been going on for 8 months. Brady wasn't the first. Janelle had been helping cover for her, creating fake social media posts to support Sabrina's alibis. They'd planned the whole thing, the engagement, the marriage, even the joke at the party. Sabrina thought it would be funny to humiliate me publicly, never dreaming I'd turn it back on her. "The prenup thing," she said through the door. "You were bluffing, right? What do you think?" "Eli, please. I made a mistake. I love you. We can work this out." "Like we worked out your yoga schedule?" Silence. That evening, I unlocked the doors and found Sabrina sitting on our bed, surrounded by packed suitcases. "I'm leaving," she said, without looking up. "Good. I want half of everything. The house, the business, your investments." I pulled a manila envelope from my jacket and tossed it onto the bed. "Divorce papers. You might want to read page 3. Her hands shook as she opened the envelope. Page 3 detailed the prenuptial agreement we had, in fact, signed. Not the morning of the engagement party, but the day I'd found the first deleted security footage. I'd had my lawyer draw it up, and Sabrina had signed it, thinking it was an insurance document for the house. "This isn't legal," she whispered. "Check the notary stamp. Your friend Janelle witnessed it, remember? Right before she posted that video of you two at the spa talking about how stupid I was." Sabrina's face crumpled. "You recorded us?" "Janelle did. Posted it herself. You really should check your best friend's private social media accounts." The truth was, I'd been 3 steps ahead for weeks. Every conversation, every meeting, every plan they'd made, I'd known about it. Janelle's need to document everything for her social media empire had been their downfall. "You'll get exactly what you brought into this marriage," I continued. "Your car, your clothes, and your student loan debt." "Eli, please." "Brady's waiting outside. I believe he has something that belongs to you." I walked to the window and opened it. Brady was indeed waiting, sitting in his BMW with the engine running. When he saw me, he got out and started walking toward the house. "Actually, no," I called down to him. "She'll come to you." I turned back to Sabrina. "You have 30 minutes to get your things and leave. After that, I'm changing the locks again." "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore." As she dragged her suitcases down the stairs, I called after her. "Oh, and Sabrina, you might want to check Brady's financial situation before you make any long-term plans. Turns out, most of his clients have canceled their memberships. Something about not trusting a man who sleeps with married women." The front door slammed behind her. I watched from the living room window as she struggled with her suitcases in the driveway. Brady got out to help her, and I could see them arguing, probably about money, specifically the lack thereof. Mrs. Ellis appeared at her front door, arms crossed, watching the drama unfold. When she caught my eye, she gave me a thumbs up. My phone buzzed with a text from Marty. "Heard what happened. You okay?" I typed back, "Never better." And for the first time in months, that was actually true. 6 months later, I was sitting in Murphy's pub with Rick and a few other friends, celebrating the finalization of my divorce. The prenup had held up in court, and Sabrina had gotten exactly what she deserved: nothing. "Whatever happened to Brady?" Rick asked as he poured another round. "Last I heard, he was working at a chain gym in Bangor," I said. "Sabrina moved back in with her parents." "And Janelle?" I smiled. "Turns out, posting videos of your friends committing adultery isn't great for your influencer career. Her sponsors dropped her faster than Sabrina dropped her marriage vows." Rick raised his glass. "To Eli Grant, the luckiest unlucky man in Maine." "I'll drink to that," I said. As I drove home that night, past the country club where this whole mess had started, I thought about Sabrina's engagement party joke. She'd said she was marrying me for my money, and everyone had laughed. The joke was on her. She'd ended up with nothing but the bill for her own destruction. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.